Hello everyone. I will share real stories that I know and I'm sure you will like them.
The warm bubbles swirled around me, steam rising in thick curls into the night air. The water lapped gently at my skin, heat sinking deep into my muscles, loosening the tension I hadn't realized I'd been holding. The backyard was quiet, the only sound the faint rustling of the trees and the occasional drip of water against the edge of the tub. It was peaceful, private, exactly what I needed. I tilted my head back against the cushioned edge, closing my eyes, letting the night air cool my face while the heat from the water wrapped around the rest of me. The stress of the day faded, replaced by the slow, rhythmic pulse of the jets against my back. My fingers traced the rim of my wine glass, the chilled condensation a sharp contrast to the warmth surrounding me. I took a slow sip, letting the taste linger on my tongue, savoring the moment of solitude. And then, a voice, low, amused. "Didn't think you'd still be out here." My eyes snapped open. Standing just at the edge of the hot tub, half-shadowed by the dim backyard lights, was my husband's best friend, Jake. A slow ripple moved through the water as I shifted slightly, adjusting the strap of my swimsuit even though it hadn't slipped. He shouldn't have been here. I hadn't heard the back door open, hadn't even realized he was still around. "I was just relaxing," I said, my voice steady, though my pulse had picked up slightly. "Didn't expect company." Jake smirked, his gaze flickering over the water. "Your husband said I could stay a while. He had to run out for a bit. I figured I'd grab a drink, but..." His eyes met mine again, something unreadable in them. "This looks better." The air between us shifted slightly, the quiet hum of the night suddenly more noticeable. The warmth of the water no longer felt like the only source of heat. I should have told him to go inside. Should have made some excuse about needing to get out soon. But instead, I simply watched as he reached for the hem of his shirt, tugging it over his head in one smooth motion before tossing it onto a nearby chair. His body was lean, toned, the soft glow of the outdoor lights casting sharp angles across his chest and shoulders. My fingers curled around the stem of my glass as I exhaled slowly, trying to ignore the way my stomach tightened at the sight. Jake didn't hesitate. He reached for the waistband of his shorts, unfastening them with a casual ease before stepping out of them completely. He was wearing swim trunks underneath, thankfully, but the motion was still enough to send my pulse into an unsteady rhythm. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, he stepped into the water. The tub rippled as his weight sank into the bubbling warmth, the space between us suddenly feeling smaller than it had moments ago. He settled onto the opposite side, stretching an arm along the rim, his fingers just barely grazing the surface of the water. His eyes met mine, holding my gaze in the quiet stillness of the night. "Mind if I join you?" I should have said yes. I should have said I was just about to get out. But I didn't. The warmth of the hot tub enveloped me, but it wasn't the only thing warming my skin anymore. The distance between us was minimal, and yet the air felt thick, charged. Jake settled across from me, the ripples in the water fading as he leaned back, his hands resting along the edge, his gaze never leaving mine. "I didn't think you'd mind," he said finally, his voice quieter now, softer against the night air. I sighed softly, swirling my wine glass idly, watching the reflection of the backyard lights dance on the surface of the water. "I guess not." Jake grinned, tilting his head slightly. "That doesn't sound very convincing." I laughed softly, shaking my head. "It's just unexpected." He stretched slightly, the muscles in his arms tensing under the dim lighting. "I get it, but I thought, why waste it all?" I knew he meant the hot tub. I understood. But the way he said it, the way his voice dropped a little, made my stomach clench in a way I wasn't prepared for. I took another sip of wine, needing something to distract me, but it only intensified the feelings. The warmth of the drink, the heat of the water, the quiet sounds of the night, it all made everything heavier, more intense. The silence between us stretched, neither of us moving, both of us waiting. Then he slowly reached for the bottle of wine sitting on the ledge, pouring himself a glass before turning to me. "So you always sit here alone?" I shrugged, trying to keep my tone casual. "Sometimes." It's nice. Quiet. Jake hummed, nodding. I get that, but it seems like a waste of time. I raised an eyebrow. A waste. He took a sip, pausing for a moment before answering. Yeah, not something to be enjoyed alone. His words hung in the air, heavier than they should have. My fingers tightened lightly around the stem of my glass, my pulse suddenly louder than the churning water around us. I should have changed the subject, redirected the conversation. But instead, I found myself watching him, his relaxed posture, the way his fingers traced the rim of his glass effortlessly, the way his eyes held something unreadable beneath them. Do you always say that? I asked, my voice quieter. Jake smirked, setting his drink down on the table. Only when it's true. The water moved between us as he adjusted slightly, small waves gently lapping at my legs. He wasn't touching me yet, but I could feel the distance between us shrinking, the tension building. You seem tense, he murmured, tilting his head slightly. You should relax. I exhaled slowly, leaning back just enough to roll my shoulders back. I'm relaxed. Jake chuckled, shaking his head. Not really. I swallowed, my skin prickling under his gaze. And you'd know? He leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees, his smirk softening, more understanding. Yeah, I think I'd know. The moment stretched, the night air pressing down on us. My heart was pounding now, a steady rhythm slapping against my ribs. I should have stopped this. I should have stood up, apologized, backed away before this could turn into something else entirely. But I felt something big in the water. I had never done it with something that big before, and I wanted to try it. After that, everything went quiet. And Jake, he noticed. His fingers slid across the surface of the water before he finally spoke, his voice quieter than before, more deliberate. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you didn't always play it safe? A slow breath escaped my lips. Jake. He didn't move closer, didn't push. He just looked at me, waiting. And in that moment, with the heat pressing against my skin and the weight of his gaze holding me in place, I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't just another night in the hot tub anymore. Something had changed. And whether I was ready to admit it or not, I didn't want to leave.